Welcome to my podcast entitled The Wright Experience. I'm Dr. William T. Wright Jr., the founder and host of this show. For the past 11 months or so, I've been working diligently to try to bring you the very best leaders that I could find, provide some more insight into some good, sound leadership practices that will end up making us all better. As time continues, it is the mission of my podcast to continue to stretch the envelope. I want this podcast to become a resource for future leaders to learn and grow from. Our initial focus has been on educational leaders. Earlier this month, you heard from a leader from the healthcare information management profession. We're going to continue to invite leaders from all across all disciplines to be a part of this work that we're trying to do. I'm committed to continuing to seek the very best leaders that I can find. Please don't hesitate also to contact me with leaders from whom you'd like to see appear on this podcast as well. By all means, when you hear something that you like, please drop us a comment, click like, or if you're viewing us via YouTube, we'd love for you to click like, comment, and most importantly, that magical subscribe button. Tonight is episode 44 of the Wright Experience. My guest tonight has the unique distinction of having served as a board member and chairman of the board, actually, for a large school district before assuming his position as school superintendent. In most cases, people are elected to school boards after a career in education. Although we grew up near each other in two neighboring counties, we just recently met and have gotten to know each other pretty well. He's off to an amazing start in his new role as superintendent. My guest tonight is Mr. Keith Sutton, Superintendent of Warren County Schools. Keith Sutton is an education innovator, public servant, entrepreneur, and advocate for children and families who has married his passion for education to his expertise in relationship management. Sutton is the founder of Focused LLC, a firm designed to support organizations in improvement and transformation of education. Prior to Focus, he spent time as the Excellence Director for Best NC, an education think tank committed to improving North Carolina's education system through policy and advocacy. A Rocky Mount, North Carolina native, Sutton has served his community in Raleigh for nearly 2 decades through work on boards and committees, including the state's NAACP, the Triangle Urban League, Healthy Schools Task Force, Raising Achievement and Closing Gaps Task Force, the Greater Raleigh Chamber of Commerce, the Southeast Raleigh Assembly, and the Blue Ribbon Committee on the Future of Wake County. Mr. Sutton has served as a member of the Wake County Board of Education. He did so from 2009 until 2021, and many of that time he served also as board chair. He is a member of the Triangle East chapter of 100 Black Men, Unity Lodge number 64 of Prince Hall Masons, and the Iota chapter of Omega Psi Phi fraternity. That was a little difficult to say there at the end, Mr. Sutton.
But that's all right. That's all right. That's roll right off your tongue.
But anyway, my friend, I want to welcome you to the Wright Experience. I'm excited to have you up here, and just glad to be getting to know you and your work, and we're excited about this opportunity to speak with you tonight.
Well, thank you, my brother. I'm glad to be here. Happy to be with you this evening.
Thank you. So we'll get right into the questions. Tell us some of the wonderful things about the Warren County School District and some of the outstanding initiatives that are currently going on there.
Well, first again, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here in Warren County. We got here mid last year, July 1st, and served the first 6 months through December 31st as an interim. And towards the latter part of November, the board decided or saw fit to after we had been dating for the last 6 months, we decided we would go ahead and get married. And so they made me the permanent superintendent starting January 3rd. Warren County is, I guess, a little bit west of you.
That's right.
About an hour up north of Wake County, up on the Virginia border. We're a small but mighty little district, 7 schools, 1,700 students, and very similar to your area up in the sort of this Roanoke Valley area. all of our districts, Warren, Halifax, Northampton, Hertford, Bertie, all of us sort of in that same mix. And so we face some of the similar challenges, being rural communities, obviously majority communities as well. And so communities that are rich in history and heritage. And so Warren County is no different in that regard. But we're all struggling and facing challenges to make sure that all of our students are exposed to the same opportunities that students that grow up in Raleigh and Charlotte and Greensboro and Fayetteville and other communities. Just like you, we want our students to have those same opportunities no matter what part of North Carolina you live, what zip code you're in, or what challenges your community faces. We want to make sure all of our students get the best high quality education that we can provide for them. And again, as I said, make sure that they get exposed to all the opportunities so that they too can play a role in our society.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I know you're already off to a tremendous start from what I see and hear. So certainly, you're to be commended for taking on that role. So speaking of that, what inspired you to seek out and ultimately become a school superintendent?
Yeah, so I think I've been a policymaker for the last 12 years as a member of the Wake County Board of Education. Spent several years, the last 2 years, as chair of that board. And I think any policymaker would honestly, well, I'd be lying to you if they tell you that at some point they don't get impatient with the pace of implementation. As a policymaker, your charge is to set policy, set vision and mission for an organization. Be it the school board, if you're a school board member, if you're a town council member for that city or council where you work, if you're a state legislator, you set in vision and policy for the state. But you watch the governor work, or your mayor, or your county manager, city manager, superintendent in this case, work. And there are times when, like I said, you get a little impatient. And me, I've grown up, and much of my career has been in program management, program implementation, and a lot of my DNA is being that of a problem solver and sort of solution oriented thinker. And so all of those things, after a while, from 12 years, had this sort of fuel or fire in me to move from governance and get into administration and sort of get my hands and feet wet in the day-to-day operations and see if I can make even more of an impact from an administrative role than sitting there. And again, not to underestimate the role of a policymaker and board member. It's a huge responsibility. But as superintendent and sitting in this seat, there's a lot to be done, a lot to get done, as you well know. And so I know I'm speaking a little bit to experience there, but I hope that makes sense and you get where I'm coming from.
Absolutely, absolutely, and there's no seat like the superintendency to have an impact, and with good board support, as you know and understand, you can actually get a whole lot done. That's absolutely the case. Absolutely the case. So, Mr. Sutton, being that you served as a board member in Wake County, which is urban, suburban, I guess we call it these days, and affluent, at least speaking, in comparison to Warren County.
Sure.
And now that you're superintendent of Warren, which is rural, as we just described, what do you see as the differences and then the similarities between the roles, yes, but also the resources?
So yeah, I mean, in terms of resources, obviously, it's Wake County is one of the most affluent counties in our state. It's very fortunate to have the tax base and the resources that are there, and very different from Warren County. Warren County been a tier 1 county, which is a state designation as an economically distressed county, and so a huge difference in terms of resources and availability of resources. So obviously that's a big challenge, but we're fortunate too here in Warren, as most school districts, to be on the receiving end of millions of dollars coming from the federal government and pandemic recovery funds and that sort of thing to help us through this pandemic. And so we feel good about what we've been awarded as a local district. I've said, to several groups, all school systems across this country, have money now, and we're seeing in my opinion, the largest influx of money into public schools that we've ever seen,
Right.
more than after the Great Depression or during the Obama era and race to the top funds. We've never seen this sort of investment in our public school system, and of course, it's designed not only to provide, health and safety solutions to our schools and communities, but to address learning loss and recovery and addressing social emotional issues. And so I'm just excited about the additional funds that we do have and our ability to make an impact using those dollars.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And we just we have to be creative with releasing the flexibility of those dollars. But you're right. There's never been a time like the present to be able to tap into those resources and do what's right for kids and what should have been done years ago. So
Absolutely.
absolutely. Uh, what are some of your thoughts about the need to recruit and retain quality employees in education? How can we do a better job with that?
It's tough when you're here, in counties like ours, and you got to compete against the Raleigh community, the Wright County and Durham and other places, and a lot of the students and the young folks that we see coming out of, our colleges and schools of education want to move in communities where, there are lots of bright lights and opportunities for entertainment and housing and everything else. And so, being here in Warren County, we're challenged just the opposite. We don't have the bright lights. We don't have the robust housing community and that sort of thing. So to your point, we do have to be more creative and
Right.
resourceful in terms of strategies for recruiting. So it could be offer, of course, trying to, increase salaries, provide more from a salary standpoint, using recruitment bonuses and incentives to keep staff there, but also thinking about things such as housing incentives and looking at ways that we can provide housing incentives or travel incentives for folks that may have to commute 30, 45 minutes to get here.
Mhm.
We have to think about things such as um, uh, remote work opportunities and providing flexible schedules. One way to offset the financial piece of it is to allow 1 or 2 days a week for a remote work opportunity. Now, that's difficult for teachers and that sort of thing because you got to be in the classroom. But for central office staff and some other positions that are able to work remotely, offering some opportunities for a flexible work schedule. So those are just a few thoughts that I have in terms of how we can really be more creative in terms of trying to be able to recruit and retain top talent to counties like ours.
And certainly in today's times with all the competition and if you want to call it that and all of the options that professionals have, we've got to get creative and flexible and think out of the box for sure. That's I agree with
I
that
would say
wholeheartedly.
the
Yeah,
biggest opportunity or sort of, if I could make a plug for communities like ours, is,
sure.
you can go to Wake County or Charlotte, Mecklenburg in a large system, but, you'd be a small fish in a big pond. But if you
That's
come
right.
to Hertford County, you come to Warren County, there's a bigger opportunity to make an impact.
That's right.
And so I
That's
certainly
right.
encourage
That's right.
young folks who are thinking about education, come on to Warren County, come on to Hertford County, because we can use you here, and there's a really good opportunity to make an impact here, and that impact can be seen and felt quickly.
That's right. I appreciate the shameless plug, by the way. I appreciate
No, not a problem.
that. So this is William's opinion. So we'll see how you feel about this. I would argue that board members' work right now is also probably more difficult than it has been in the last 100 years or so. Do you agree with that? And if so, how can citizens, I guess would be the best way to say it, how can citizens help board members continue to be successful, in your opinion?
One, I agree with you. I think
Right,
this is the most uh, um, probably contentious time,
right,
most highly scrutinized time to be a board member, to be an elected official. Um, I was talking with some colleagues. I think you were among them the other day. I made the comment that as a board member, and boards probably out of the course of a given school year have to make one or two, just a handful of high pressure decisions,
Right.
as a school board member, you know, hiring of a superintendent, the approval of a budget, maybe the construction of a new school or closing of a school. Those can be controversial decisions, but you only have to make those decisions, like I said, maybe once or twice a year. Um, where board members are now, what they're faced with now, almost monthly, board members are faced with making high pressure, controversial decisions, whether to close a school or not, whether to mask or not,
Right.
uh, uh, how to follow quarantine procedures and that sort of thing. And the community is watching. The community is coming to school board meetings, participating in school board meetings, and so it is a high pressure time for board members. I think what the members of the public can do is to try to work with board members and be understanding, uh,
Right.
uh, be patient with policymakers and decision makers as they deliberate through these decisions. They're not easy decisions. I can tell you that. Rather to require vaccinations of your staff or vaccinations of students. Um, these are not only high pressure decisions, but in some cases, life or death decisions, and they are weighty, meaty decisions, and not ones that are to be taken lightly. And so I just encourage the public to get involved, understand the issues, understand what board members are faced with, reach out to your board member and offer some thoughts and opinions. Because finally, I would say, the more we hear from the public, it's easier to make those decisions. Sometimes it can be a little bit more difficult because the more people you got weighing in, you got more factors to kind of listen to and consider. But the feedback always helps.
Absolutely, and certainly during Board Member Appreciation Month on a nationwide level, I'm glad to hear you make those comments. We certainly need to work in tandem with board members and not attack them and all the crazy stuff that's going on right now in the United States. It's just amazing to me what we see sometimes. That
Absolutely.
um, it's nobody signed up to be ridiculed and attacked and all the stuff that we got going on.
That's right.
Yet it happens.
That's right.
So thus far in the superintendency, Mr. Sutton, what has surprised you the most? And that could be, of course, good or bad. What surprised you the most?
You know, I would say I think you hear superintendents and folks in the seat talk about, every day is unique. No one day is the same, and that has proven to be true.
Sure.
And somewhat of a surprise to the magnitude, because it is. You never know what you might walk into any given day when you walk in the office, and it can be good things and it can be bad things.
Sure.
If you got staff out, or teachers are out because of quarantine, or a chiller went out at a school and you got no heat, or no power in the whole district, or a snowstorm is coming or something. There are situations that you run into every day as soon as you walk in the office, and so no day is the same. It's every day is unique. Probably more good days than bad. Uh,
Sure.
but that's probably the biggest surprise. I would say, especially if you start your days out in the school or in the school building, you never know what you'll run into.
And then with a district with the size of ours, I'm at 2,500, I think, and you got 17. You don't have somebody sitting in an office to go answer those calls. If that chiller
No,
goes out, more than likely, if you're like me, you're the one that's going out there trying to work with your maintenance staff or whatever to get that problem resolved. So
that's right. That's
yeah,
right.
that's exactly right. What kinds of things do you do to continue to grow as a leader? Books, professional development, etc. What are you doing to continue to grow?
You know, all of those things you just named. Attending conferences, sitting, sometimes just talking with colleagues. Reading literature materials. I think the best way is as you attend professional development conferences and meetings, you hear so much from the colleagues about what they're doing, what they're experiencing in their districts. You hear from
Right.
speakers and experts on various topics and subjects, and they help as well. And so those are probably the main two ways that you just kind of try to, you try the best to keep up. I mean, our email boxes, if yours like mine, the email box is inundated with vendors and
Right.
workshops and different things that are even available online. And so that opens up sort of an additional opportunity to avail yourself to different trainings and seminars and webcasts and that sort of thing. And so there's lots to keep up with as the trends are constantly changing, as you well know. And so you have to be a continuous learner, especially when you're sitting in this position.
And you also spent some time in the Broad Superintendent's Academy too, is that right?
Not the Broad Superintendent's Academy, but the Urban Superintendent's Academy
Urban Superintendent's
with
Academy. Okay.
AASA. That's a
Okay.
program with AASA, which is Superintendent's Association and Howard
Okay.
University, where they train aspiring superintendents to go and run urban like minority districts.
Okay.
So yeah, I was part of the Urban Superintendent's Academy.
Okay. I thought I had heard that somewhere in some discussion. So that's a great accomplishment and good preparation for the work that you're doing now. I'm
Yeah,
sure it is.
thank you.
So, Mr. Sutton, if a brand new leader in their first leadership role contacted you tomorrow morning for some sound advice, what are some things that you would tell them?
Two things that or a couple of things I would say. One, uh, systems level thinking and politics. Uh,
Yeah.
the first, in terms of politics, um, the superintendency is while you're not a politician per se, it has just as much politics as an elected official, but particularly understanding the politics of your board members and understanding their goals, their hopes, aspirations, and having just a good relationship with your board is key, as you well know.
Right.
Uh, but when I talk about systems level thinking, from where we sit, and most folks in this position, I've worked in central office, have worked as a principal or administrator in a school. I didn't come that route in particular, but my training as a board member gives us that sort of broad level thinking. Rather you're managing 7 schools or 12 schools or 200 schools. Every decision you make has a ripple effect, and they have repercussions. And so, as a superintendent, you have to be able to think in scenarios and think about, if I make this decision, then this will happen, or what if this happens, or what if that happens, and what is the impact district wide and to all students, as opposed to thinking about one school or one student or one community. You've got to think about the district and think about the system. And so, systems level thinking is number one, I think, when it comes to being in this role.
And that experience gained is through your entrepreneurship and leading a very busy board. I'll use that word.
I mean, absolutely.
Yeah,
Coming from
sure.
Wright County with 191 schools, 20,000 employees,
Right.
161,000 students, $2 billion budget. Everything about Wake County and everything that we did. There are systems, procedures, protocols for every single thing that we did. Even if you're buying a pencil, you
That's
probably got
right.
to fill out a form or something. And so coming to a smaller district like Warren, that has been a challenge in terms of putting together those systems, processes, protocols, procedures. Because oftentimes you think, well, we're only 7 schools. We don't need a process for this or a protocol for that. But particularly when you're in a public, in the public domain,
That's right.
and you're spending public dollars, taxpayer dollars, you want to be accountable for those things, everything from your time to what you're purchasing and what everybody else is doing. And so when you have that sort of accountability, and you're thinking about from an accountability standpoint, You want to make sure that you've got systems and processes in place to hold you accountable, to hold others accountable, and making sure that you're making an impact with the public trust in mind.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Mr. Sutton, are there any other points that would need to be made that I did not cover tonight?
I would say, I've listened. Uh, I'm a sports enthusiast,
Okay.
just like you, and while you oftentimes try not to put everything in terms of sports, I listened to a sportscast on ESPN recently. They were talking about a particular coach who wasn't successful, I would say, in making the transition from the college ranks to the NFL. And so they were talking about the challenges that he faced. And the sportscaster mentioned three things. He mentioned credibility, he mentioned competency or being competent, and impact.
Okay.
And as he talked about this particular coach and in his opinion, how he had failed at all three, he said, well, this coach had no college experience and he came in and he was trying to coach players, coach them really hard and coach them up hard, but he didn't have any credibility. He'd never been in the NFL, never been a coach, never been a player. So he didn't have the credibility that he needed to be able to do that. And because he had never worked in the NFL before, his opinion was that he didn't have the competence to come in and particularly push players, particularly leading adult men and grown men without their competence. And then third, impact and his ability to make an impact. He just didn't have the ability to make an impact. I raised those three things because as I thought about it, I said, well, that's not particular or unique to coaching. Any
Right.
leader
Exactly.
has to have those three things if they're going to be effective as a leader. You've got to have credibility. I was fortunate to come into this position after spending 12 years on the board of the largest school system, and that brought me some level of credibility as I came in. I learned a lot during those 12 years, and so it afforded me some level of competency and having some sense of what needed to be done, and being able to come into a district like Warren, because where there are challenges, there are also opportunities. And so being able to make an impact in a small district like Warren won't take long. I feel like we're already making an impact here in just the 7 months that we've been here. So I leave with that thought and just mention credibility, competence, and impact. And as any leader going into a new situation, thinking about those things as you think about how you'll lead in your next opportunity.
All right. All right. That's real good for an Omega. I appreciate that. Hold on with me for a minute and we'll come back out and close the show. Just
All right.
stick right there. Next month, the Wright Experience will be celebrating its 1-year anniversary, believe it or not. I'm proud to state that we have over 500 active followers and many more that have viewed our podcast at one point or another. And I ask that you continue to spread the word about the work that we're doing. I'm extremely grateful for the amazing responses that I've received. Please keep those coming. Next week on February 3rd, 2022, my guest will be Dr. Michael J. Smith, who is a physician with Duke University's School of Medicine in the Department of Pediatrics. Dr. Smith leads the ABC Science Collaborative, which is a group tracking metrics, amongst other things, for the COVID-19 pandemic to better assist schools in taking the appropriate measures to educate children safely while the pandemic exists. I look forward to talking with him about the pandemic with specific regards to schools and how we can continue to educate while in the midst of hopefully getting out soon of this COVID-19 pandemic. I look forward to that experience next week. That'll be next week, February 3rd. That show will air at 7:00 p.m. And Mr. Sutton, certainly, my friend, thank you very much for agreeing to be a part of this podcast. And we have just gotten to know each other officially very recently, but I admire and respect your leadership and the wonderful work that you're doing, and I value your friendship and your collegiality, and certainly look forward to continuing to hear about the amazing things that you're doing in Warren County, and that great leadership, and working collaboratively with those board members to take care of those 1,700 students. And you're to be commended for getting in the game, particularly at such a time as this. So,
thank you, sir. I appreciate you. I've admired your work for some time from afar, and it's a pleasure to be working alongside with you and on par with you, and look forward to continued work and friendship, and certainly our D9 connection as well.
Absolutely. You like this. Let me, you see that behind me there, don't
I didn't miss it. I didn't miss it. I started at the beginning of the show. I didn't miss it. You can't miss it.
But to the Wright Experience audience, I want to thank you for watching, and good evening.
Bye now.